If you're having suicidal thoughts or feelings or feel like you have no hope, please call 988. There, you can talk to someone who not only cares about your story, but cares about you. Please reach out today. Thomas P. Murphy once said, "Minutes are worth more than money. Spend them wisely." At Minutes Wisely, we take that to heart. Our mission is to decrease veteran suicide by providing life-changing experiences for veterans, first responders, and Gold Star families. We believe that we can make a lasting impact by rekindling a sense of purpose and fostering community through sponsored tickets to sporting events. These experiences are not just about the game, they're about the moments that can change lives. A simple sporting event can boost joy and instill a sense of renewed hope and purpose for those who have served. Join us in making a difference, become a moment maker, and empower a veteran with rediscovered hope. Visit minuteswisely.com for more information and to get involved. Together, we can make every moment count.
Good evening, fellas.
Hello.
Hey, all right. Welcome back to another episode of TSP, man. A lot has changed since the last time we were on just a week ago.
Yep.
The Detroit Lions got kicked out of the playoffs. We have a new president.
I'm sorry. Flake.
We had a school shooting this morning right here in Middle Tennessee.
Antioch, yeah.
And Antioch, so a lot of crazy shit going on. But anyways, TSP spawned the nonprofit Minutes Wisely. Our goal is to prevent veteran suicide. The way we do that is we send veterans, first responders, and even Gold Star family members to awesome events. We have a couple of good ones planned for this year. So we just had our first meeting in 2025, and our goal is to we're branching out from just sporting events. We have a deep sea fishing excursion that's going to come up in southern Florida. So if you're a veteran and you like to fish, man, you let us know, and we're going to put you in a hat. If you get drawn, we're going to send you on an all expenses paid trip to fishing. There was a couple other things that are coming up, but it's all in the planning stages right now. So as they come up, I will definitely be posting them. So keep an eye out for those. Just hop on over to minuteswisely.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there, and every Monday we'll send out a newsletter, and that's where you'll find all the cool events coming up. Let me see. I just got back from Detroit. I went on one of the excursions this weekend. I went to a playoff game. It was a great crowd. It was ruckus for sure. The good team lost and the bad team won, but whatever. It's all good.
Who do they play now? The Chiefs?
No, the Chiefs and
Commanders.
The Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills play.
Chiefs and the Bills.
The Commanders or the Redskins play the Philadelphia Eagles.
Thank you for saying Redskins, because maybe we can bring that back with this new regime change.
President Trump laid the gauntlet down, and everything's going to go back to a common sense.
Shit! So. Wow, dude, he got 200 executive orders in one day. I mean, damn.
There's a couple of them that I really appreciate. The first thing that he did was he reinstated all military personnel that got kicked out for not taking the jab. And they paid the person retroactive all the way back, so they didn't lose a nickel of money. I thought that was amazing, man.
That's cool.
Hey, my hat's off to President Trump on that one. He also said that there's two genders in the world. You have male and you have female. I was like, holy shit. It literally took a sitting president for somebody to say that. Like, that is.
We have two genders? Really?
There's only two genders, man. Imagine that.
Oh my God. I didn't know.
boys and girls. Hey, look, if you have a penis, you're a boy. If you have a vagina, you're a girl.
Oh
Hey,
my God. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Okay. We're probably
was that
gonna
too
lose
much for
about
you?
we'll probably
Hey,
lose
look,
like 300 listeners from that one.
if we lose listeners for that, then be honest with you, I don't really want you listening to this show.
There you go.
It's literally common sense, man. So, anyways,
I do want to put something up. I love the idea that you want to take them to a fishing trip, and that's great.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this today. I was like, oh shit, I want to do this for some lucky people. All right, I want to do something for you guys as a part of Minutes Wisely and part of TSP. But I know you're doing it for Minutes Wisely, but I want to do something for TSP.
Yeah. Well, it all goes together.
Okay. And I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to take someone who wants to scuba dive and who wants to learn how to scuba dive for an all-inclusive paid weekend in Panama City in the summertime, May, June.
Yeah, because it's snowing down there right now.
Yeah, I know. Dude, Tybee in Savannah had snow. Pensacola, Panama
Pensacola
City
got snow. It's crazy.
But what I want to do
global warming
is I want to take them on a dive excursion, introduction to dive, stay at my timeshare in Panama City, which has plenty of room for like 2 people. So a spouse and a couple or 2, 2 guys, 2 girls, whatever. You'll have plenty of room. I've already paid, the timeshare's already paid for. All I got to do is make the reservation and everything's covered. Your meals, driving, gas, we're all going to convoy together. But I want to do this for 2 lucky people. So maybe that can be an add-on to your thing, Fleek.
Yeah. Well,
if you'd allow me that good grace.
We'll definitely work out the logistics there,
okay.
pal. So I think that's all I have, but there'll be more info coming, and obviously these trips cost money, so there'll be fundraising coming along also. There's a couple of fundraising events already in the books. April, we're going to do the Veteran Barbecue Bash at Single Tree Barbecue. 9/11, the golf outing again, in which the golf outing did great last year. It brought in $9,000, so it's very awesome. So whenever you see these fundraising events, just come on down. You're the next contestant on TSP. Well, anyways, that's about all I got. Tonight we're sitting with George.
Yeah. You introduced him since you guys were on the Vinson together.
So George, you can see his dates there. George was on the USS Carl Vinson CVN 70. Same years I was there. I was on from 85 to 88. So George was a Marine. Was in the Marine detachment.
Is a Marine.
No,
there's
I
no
didn't
was.
say he was.
Marine, but there's no more Marine detachment. So.
I said Marine detachment.
Sorry, I'm just
once a Marine, always a Marine.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You gotta be careful with that is and was shit with a Marine, man.
No, I was talking about his duty station, sir.
Okay.
But anyways, George and I'm sure we crossed paths one time or another. We have some mutual friends. Actually, a very good friend of mine, Tina, she married one of George's Marines. Paul
Calzada.
Yeah, he was a great Marine, man, a great dude, all the way around, great guy.
Just he and I hung out a lot, and with the tours of duty there on the detachment, you end up with different guys that you run with. So I ran with this big group of 15 of us that showed up from C school, and then but when Corporal Cal showed up, we all hit it off together. I mean, you knew what kind of guy that he was. first off, before he got together with Tina, we had some rampaging good times out in town and on that ship. And, he was a hell of a Marine. And, I was deeply sad when he passed.
Yeah, I believe he was killed in a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, it's been some time, but when I heard he passed, he was a gunnery sergeant, I believe.
Yeah.
Hoorah.
And it was, and we have, unfortunately, in that Marine detachment, it's a very closed family just because of the size of the detachment. But we've actually had 9 guys that I'm aware of from that era pass, which is a lot of them. And I have to tell you, if you would permit me to say their names real quick.
Yeah,
absolutely.
go ahead, man.
I'd like everybody to remember them. That would be Michael Bailey, Mark Berwick, Brian Calais, Paul Calzada, Larry DeWalt, Wesley Motter, Barry Paggi, Julian Somra, and Raymond Beasley. They're no longer with us, and we're a very closed group, and we've managed to stay different segments of us closed tight since. And I mean, I've been out 35 years off the Vinson, 36 going on 37. So
Yep,
I'm the boot here again.
yes. So in 6 days it'll be my 40th anniversary of getting on the bus and heading out of Dearborn, Michigan. So yeah, it's been a few years. So that puts me about, actually, I got out in 88 also. So same time frame as George.
I got out in 89. Of course, I did my tour there, and then I had some time to do in the fleet after.
I was 12.
So George and I were,
Right.
hey, Andrew always loves telling everybody this. George was with us when we were chasing Russians around the Bering Sea.
He was. Hey, that's a great story. Hey,
the bulk of us on the ship that weren't involved with the air wing, we were blissfully ignorant. It was operations in the sea, and I grew up in New Hampshire, so I really preferred to stay in below decks. I didn't give a shit about snow.
Live free or die, baby.
So I'd had enough before I went.
George, what was your MOS?
0311. Is there another one?
0331. There is another one. Way to go. Hey, I knew I liked you because you're a grunt, man. Grunts like each other for some reason.
For some reason.
To close with and destroy. The green monster.
Here's a better question, George. Where'd you go to boot camp at? This was separate. Oh, damn it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what you were to say, Hollywood.
And strangely enough, any Marine that went to Parris Island in the era that I went and then
not me
got selected for sea duty and got sent to sea school, we have this unique distinction of having been at both Marine Corps recruit depots. So I went through recruit training at Parris Island, but I went to sea school out in San Diego. And the sea school at that time, the school was actually on the Marine Corps recruit depot. And so we were there for 6 weeks for school as well.
Oh, man. You got to see San Diego? I've never.
And the first thing they told us when they got there was don't fuck with the privates, which we didn't. Who gave a shit?
Yeah.
I was in San Diego fucking around with some dickhead on the base. I knew it was on the other side of that gate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Damn.
So did you ever go to Tijuana?
Many, many times, yes.
Tijuana was taboo. You're not allowed to go there.
Yeah.
Never been.
Tijuana was the shit. And I'm trying to think. We had a reunion back in 2019, so my wife knows pretty much everything I ever did, but there's some shit we did down in Tijuana. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Hey,
funniest thing that ever happened in Tijuana with us was actually when I got out in the fleet. There was like 6 or 7 of us. I was with at the time 3-7, and we got sent to Long Beach.
3-7.
So we were down at Long Beach waiting to get on some gator freighter to go somewhere. I think it was like for Rimpack. So we got a 96. So a bunch of us went down to Tijuana, and one of the guys with us his last name was Garcia, and he was of Latin descent, but I can't remember if he was either adopted or he didn't grow up around other Latin people, but he couldn't speak a fucking word of Spanish. So of course we're shit-faced coming back, and we got tequila, we got M80 shoved in our pants because you can't bring them across the border. And what do? We're all like, you better check Garcia out, this motherfucker. You better check him through. He's there. They start talking to him in fucking Spanish. He's looking at him like, what the fuck? So then so he ends up in a room. So we ended up stuck down there for like 4 hours till they finally believed this story. It was fucked up.
So George, you were on the Vincent, and both y'all were on the Vincent. And I know I was on a MU. And so before we came home, we stopped at Rhoda for the washdown. So we were there for like 6 days. Do you guys on the West Coast, do you guys stop and do a washdown before coming back to port?
Jesus. I don't ever remember anything like that on the Vincent. No. Different on a Gator freighter in a fleet.
Okay.
We washed down. I mean, we even washed down when we came back.
Okay.
Even for something like the rim pack. Yeah.
God bless.
The rim pack was awesome.
Yes, it was.
For you civilians, a rim pack means the rim of the Pacific, and that's a 2-month cruise. And there was a couple stops in Pearl Harbor, and it was awesome.
Pearl Harbor in 1986, when the drinking age was 19.
Yes.
I think the new change of command in the United States, I think the 7th Fleet is going to be just stationed right there at RIMPAC, not letting anybody come in.
Oh. Well, I tell you, Pearl Harbor was something. Those were and you got to remember the time it was too.
Yeah,
it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
40 years ago, this country was a whole different place.
Yes.
Reagan was in charge. The economy was pounding. It was actually a glorious time to be in the military. And I don't use that word a lot, but it was, and especially ending up how things worked out for me, where I ended up stationed.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a time.
They were allowed to haze you with no repercussions in boot camp. No boot campers got ACOGs.
No, they did not. No.
I learned on iron sights. Okay, I didn't get an ACOG until I got to the fleet. Okay, and that was after Geiger.
Well, did
you go to Geiger for SOI?
It was ITS.
That's right, ITX. Yeah.
So, but no, and I had I qualified in boot camp with an A2. I get to the Vincent, and of course we were on the ass end of all the receiving, so I had A1s.
Oh,
we had Vietnam there A1s and 45s still.
A1s, with the plastic handguards,
plastic handles, and the sights you had to use the tool to set for elevation. Didn't have a rear sight.
God. Wow, yeah. That's historic. That's old school historic.
Triangle handguards, which were great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Damn.
Yeah. Did you have to hang out with the skipper?
No, Frank did, because he was an orderly. I was in the guard. So most of what I did was, when I first came on, I stood brow. You stand. Then once you get onto the guard, because I'm sure you're well aware what we were guarding on that ship.
Yeah.
And so there's a process. You get certified onto a reliability program. You get cleared, and then you stand post there. If you manage to last through your tour and you don't fuck it up, you end up as corporal of the guard, sergeant of the guard if you're an NCO.
COG, SOG.
I mostly stood. I was a post stander. I actually kind of got an admin skate for a while, for like 6 or 7 months, I remember. So it worked out good for me. I made the most of my time on that ship.
4 years, George?
Yes, I went in 85. Went to Paris Island July of 85. I was 17, and graduated in October. And then
nice.
Infantry school. And my original orders were to 8th and I when I got out, when I reported to infantry school. And then about 3 weeks before everything wrapped up, they started where the guys that, had been selected to go to like barracks duty, like I had gotten selected for. And there were 8 or 9 of us that they pulled aside. And in those days, you had to be 6 foot to 6'5" was cut, for the parade. Well, I'm 5'9", and so the rest of us were too short to go to 8 to 9. And there were 3 of us that had pretty good GT scores, and they said, "Hey, do you want to go to C school?" And at the time, I thought he was talking with a C. And so I said, "Hey, Staff Sergeant, what's that?" And he goes, "You go and you're on ships." And I said, "Oh, so it's like the ocean." He's like, "You're right, dummy." And the first thing I said to him was, "Where is it?" And he goes, "San Diego." I'm like, "Fuck yes, I'm there." Because I grew up in a little town called Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And
yeah, I know where it is.
And I was a donkey dick as a young kid. And did you ever hear Gene Hackman say, he joined the Marine Corps? You ever see that when he was on Johnny Carson, or it was Letterman? I can't remember. And they asked him why, and he says, "Because I couldn't get laid." I was a donkey dick as a kid. I was aimless. I wasn't a very good student. In those days, my old man made it pretty clear. My folks made it pretty clear I needed to have a plan, of which I had none. And my pop was World War II Army and Korean Army.
Nice.
And so he took me down to sign up in the Army, and that's what he decided he wanted to do. And that I automatically went in another whole direction. So I ended up joining the Marines on the delayed entry program and went in. And so when I went to C school, and basically what that was, I believe it closed in 1998. I don't want to be quoted there, but I'm pretty sure it closed either in 1998 or actually earlier. And I think it actually was much earlier, because the Mardet on the CVN 70 on the Vinson was deactivated in 1998. So I think we were talking 88 actually is when C school closed, and it went to a security force school. So we went there, and it was basically Navy boot camp. We went down to the Naval Training Center. We learned firefighting, all that, went through the escape trunk, all that shit that they do in boot camp. You learned your rates and ranks. And then there was a lot of training because of what our job was for there. It was most of us that were, junior enlisted men were all from the infantry side, because that's part of what we were there for. So the Marine detachments in those days, I don't know if you guys, is it okay to talk about this?
Yeah,
of course.
Okay. So Marines on ships, when the Corps was born in 1775, our part of it is our naval history. We're Department of the Navy, and Rich, for your edification, the men's department.
Yes.
The men's department. Yes, exactly.
But we were Department of the Navy, and the original job of the Marines was actually to be a shipboard guard, protection force, and as a mobile fighting force. And so that was duty all through years, sea duty. And so by the time we got into the tail end of the Cold War, there was about 1,000 Marines at the time out of 197,000 serving on ships and detachments. And it was considered very good duty. And you had, reasonably have your shit together. And sea school was very difficult. There's a lot of academic shit that tripped guys up. And then once you get to the ship, so we had a 6-week school there. And originally what happened is, when you graduate the school, you go into this room and they say, "Okay, find your name on the board, and whatever ship you're next to," you had a piece of paper in your hand, you grabbed it. And then they said, "That's where you're spending the next 2.5 years of your life." So I originally got the Kennedy out of Norfolk, but I joined the Marines to see the world, and also to get the hell out of New Hampshire. And, so there was a kid whining. I think he was from like Alabama somewhere, and he wanted to be close to his parents. And I said, what do you have? And he had the Carl Vinson. And so I looked where that was stationed, up in Alameda, and I'm like, yeah, done business. So, and the other big thing that always strikes me about that day is that was January 28th, 1986, which was the day of the Challenger disaster. And so I know I personally, we were waiting upstairs before the graduation ceremony. We were actually standing there watching it, because the 3-hour time delay, so we could watch it live before we graduated. And Krista McAuliffe, who was a teacher from New Hampshire, from Concord, New Hampshire, was on there. And that was a real big story, I think, nationwide. We
watched it in school, yeah.
But it was reflective, and I don't know if you'd agree with me, Rich, but it was reflective of the spirit and the time in the country. It just felt like, I remember that everybody was generally pulling in the same direction. And so,
agreed.
And I got to tell you, I was absolutely fucking stunned when that happened.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of we were all not in shock, but I know I was turning that over in my head. And then of course it was time to get down and graduate and get on with the rest of my life. But I'll always remember that. So because we're coming up on
my
39
mother-in-law.
years. Yeah.
Yep.
My mother-in-law was a teacher in Nashua
Okay.
High School at the time, and she knew her, and I think I cried. I think everybody cried. I think 86. Shit, I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade.
Yeah.
And it was horrible, man. We
Yeah.
we all got together in the gym.
I watched it from the air department office.
Yeah.
And was stunned when that thing went off.
And knowing what we know now about it and kind of what we know about let's face it, the royal fucking that we've taken from our own government. You know, I looked at the Vietnam guys and you always used to say, Jesus Christ. And then as you learn about history, you learn what's going on. You learn the long, lean bone job that those guys got, but they still went. And then just, you know, that whole Challenger disaster was so preventable. And here we are 40 years later. Yeah. And I feel in some ways in the country, we've made no progress.
No, there's a lot of things that happened that were preventable. 9/11 was preventable. And here we go.
You know, and so I look at that and I just scratch my head.
Benghazi was preventable.
Yeah, that was.
I guess I never believed up until, you know, I guess there was always a part of me. And again, I equate that from the time when I went in the service is that I was never a skeptic in that things, you know, and that I always felt like we were back to the hill. And I think a lot of it had to do with serving on the Vincent because the officers and the NCOs that we had over us were incredibly well trained, but they were good men. We had Vietnam era staff NCOs, you know, our first sergeant.
Shit. You had old school fucking Vietnam vets. Oh,
our first sergeant, Sergeant Reyes. I mean, there was no fucking around with that man, and he was, you know, we had a lot of faith in him. Our executive officer at the time, Lieutenant Seaton, who went on to retire as a colonel, was a hell of a good officer. I can tell you, he was. I like to say the first adult in the room that ever stuck up for me when I was a little fucked up, and I've never forgotten it. And he ended up, you know, again, I look back now on what those Marine officers in particular, the burden that must have been on their shoulders, because, you know, and I you know, that's the one thing, Rich, Andrew, is that, you know, you got to fight, and a lot of us from the Cold Air War guys didn't get to fight. And so you drag around with you a long time, a feeling of like you trained to fight the heavyweight champ, and then you just said fuck it and didn't fight him. And but when we had that reunion in 2019, Colonel Seaton reinforced what I'd kind of already come to realize is that, and he said it to all of our wives, and I think they really got it. He said, you know, we'd leave that boat at night. He goes, and he kind of pointed all around the room, and he said, I left $100 million aircraft carrier and a portion of the country's nuclear arsenals, the security of that boat in the hands of a 19-year-old man. And that these guys did that. And that's why I think it was why we were so ever fucking wild when we didn't have the uniform on, because it didn't take long to catch the bird. You know, you understood what we were doing, and it was serious business when we were doing it.
Well, dude, what
unbeknownst, I think, to a lot of them sailors, if I can tell you, if any officer or staff NCO had ordered me to shoot one of those sailors, because that is the biggest threat on one of those ships to that arsenal. If they had told me to do it, I'd have done it unflinchingly, you know, and that's a shit ton to carry around when you're young. That's nothing compared to what these guys have done in Iraq and Afghanistan and every other zone before that.
I try to go Yankee White because what they call what your job is now, that's called Yankee White. That's those are like Marines guarding the subs, guarding the nukes. Yep. And guess what? They pulled me aside because I was tall, and they were like, "Yeah, do you want to do this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I'm in Parris Island. I'm giving the interview, and they're looking at my record. They're like, yeah, you can't do this. You have too many speeding tickets on your record. Sorry, no Yankee White for you. you're going to go to the grunts and you're going to get the shit kicked out of you, which we did. But I loved it. But I always want to do, like George, I always want to do what you did, George, because I have a lot of respect for those guys that guarded any nuclear material whatsoever in the Corps, because there's not that many of them that do it. And the guys that do it, those guys got brass fucking balls. Okay. Those guys, they're trained as grunts. They're trained to kill. I mean, shit, you just said it yourself. You would have shot a Navy sailor if you came too close to that nuclear stuff.
No, if I was ordered, and there's a distinct difference.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
There's a distinct difference, and
Right.
again, that I think that was just the discipline of the job. And again, I would never compare that service to what the guys have done today, especially the guys that went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's which I look at things now. I got a draft age. So I got a 27-year-old son. You look at your choices in life and you say, okay, well, I'm going with the choice that's not going to put my my son in some shit ass war over in fucking Ukraine. I mean, they're fighting World War I battles, 21st century technology. There's, something. I don't know whoever said it. My father used to tell me sometimes that nobody ever wins a fight, and son of a bitch, is that ever an example of that?
Right.
That's
what
good.
What exactly? And forget the genocide of the people that's been perpetrated on the Ukrainians, but it's an ecological genocide. Look at those farm fields, those crop fields. Those windbreaks, totally fucking destroyed, that took years and years and years to put up. They won't be farming crops out of that
for a long time.
Well, a generation, 100 years.
Yeah.
Shit. We're 80 years removed, just this year later from World War II. They're still fucking digging up bombs over in France. They just pulled some unexploded ordnance out of some field over there.
I got a buddy who he was a Green Beret. What the hell is this? He Tip of the Spear. He wrote that book, and he's taking guys over to deactivate landmines. Yeah. It's a good dude. I met him 5 years ago, and he goes over there and he takes EODs and he deactivates landmines in Ukraine. I mean, he's doing some really, really good stuff. I mean, it's just crazy what he's doing.
Yeah, and if you think about it, man, like how is Hiroshima a thriving city right now when just 80 years ago it was a freaking melted a
couple of reasons, and I don't know if that was rhetorical.
No, I'm just I've always wondered, how did they clean that up? Because I always heard nuclear waste is there for a lifetime. I don't think it's irradiated the same way that say Chernobyl, but the biggest thing was, first and foremost, that was an airburst bomb, which helped. Yeah. But you have to understand that the bombs that those two bombs, Fat Man there and Little Boy, they were BB gun rounds compared to what was on what we had in the 80s and what's in these arsenals today. Yeah. Right. They were nothing compared to that, and that was one fortunate thing. But the other big thing was, you have to credit, he was by all means, by all accounts, his cheese was off his cracker. But MacArthur is the military governor of Japan. But I also credit Marshall for his take on the war. I also credit Harry Truman for being forward thinking in that regard. If you remember in the old days, and I'm talking way back when you whipped a man's ass in a fight, it wasn't a blood fucking feud. The guy that was on the ground, you helped him up. They dusted each other off. You didn't have to be friends, but you respected each other.
Yeah.
And Harry Truman, I think, took what he had to do to those people, and they brought it on themselves. Don't get me wrong, but he looked what he had to do as commander in chief to save the American men. But he also realized he had an obligation to unfuck what he fucked up, and make it right, because he knew that we'd see him back again. Yeah. And it was a lesson that we learned in World War II to a degree from World War I, but here we sit today.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because this is what not just this country, but I think the world lacks respect. Nobody respects anybody. Nobody respects human life. Nobody respects anything today.
I mean,
we're back in the weeds, and and I think about knowing I was doing this today, it makes me think about the way it was back then. 66 Marines, 66 lived together, and I'm not talking Age of Aquarius and Harmony, but 66 of us lived in a berthing that has the same floor space as a typical 2-bedroom apartment. And there was no fucking horse shit about race. There was no horse shit about anything.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we knew each other right down to the last int. That's why I think we're so close today. We had a reunion in 2019, and it sparked a lot with me personally. And just you remembered a lot, but it makes you remember a different time and a different country. And all of a sudden I look back and I go, well, it was 40 years ago. But there was, there was Latin guys, black guys, white guys. Yeah. And the only fucking color that mattered was green.
Green.
We had great NCOs. Green. We had a lot of good NCOs, a lot of you talk about that. My wife,
light green and dark green, baby.
My wife said to me, she goes, I thought there was going to be punches thrown because you guys were all talking light green and dark green and pointing at each other. And she's like, you guys were all like, oh yeah, I remember him. And it's a hard thing to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. But there were guys in that ship that I was not particularly friendly of or fond of, and I'm sure that cut two ways.
Right.
But he was a Marine, and God helped the guy that touched a Marine, and God help a guy that was a Marine and didn't help the other Marines. And when we had those security alerts and we did our job, I'm sure you remember, Rich. We all stuck together. Yeah, and sure. we stuck together in that berthing. There was a mutual respect. You locked your shit up, but there was no thievery. You didn't take each other's shit. You didn't fuck with each other's shit. You got brutalized. There was a pecking order down there. It was to be a junior enlisted man in there it's a tough road, but it makes you want to work harder. So, at least
you definitely needed to have thick skin back then.
Yeah, more ways than one. Which reminds me, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I remembered when you were talking with Frank about the shellback days.
Yeah.
Well,
you found your certificate.
Oh no, you can find a shellback certificate anywhere. But here's Frank Sikatovich. As a young enlisted Marine. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
So going from left to right, or right to left, you got little Sully Sullivan, the dark green Marines, Jason Battle. The one there is my absolute best friend in the service, Howard Memory, in the middle. That's a younger Frank Sikatovich, and that's me in the background in our berthing. And those are fire hoses.
Shillelaghs.
Yeah.
This is me dealing some much-needed correction. A filthy wog.
Yeah.
Wog. I love it.
And I think I had one of, because you mentioned all the food and everything. Oh, yes. So there was some leftover garbage that some naval personnel were wallowing.
Garbage. I love it.
Oh,
I love your accent, George.
I remember those days, man.
No.
Nobody believes me when I tell them about that shit, man.
I am guessing they don't do that in today's Navy.
No.
I was just trying to show you some pictures from my shellback ceremony, and we had to blow water out of the tie downs on the deck. They made us eat green eggs and ham on the mess deck on our faces. We had to duck walk the entire length of the fucking ship. We had to do
on your hands and knees.
We had to do buddy fuckers. You had to grab your ankles. You had to do like this, on the top of the deck. I mean, it was horrible. And then our CO was King Neptune, and he was a jackass.
Really?
Yeah, okay, wait, here
was
you go.
King Neptune with his big, what did they put in the belly button? Was it a cherry or a something?
Yeah, it was like a cherry. It was either a cherry or an olive.
They get the biggest, fattest sailor they could find.
Yeah, big old
some
fat
old greasy
bastard.
Chief. You'd have to make them eat the cherry out of there.
Yeah,
they inducted 900 Marines into to be a shellback in 2007, and that dark green Marine in the front is my first Sergeant Barnes. So, yeah, he loved PT, man. That was like a day at the beach for him. This shit sucked. I hated it. Thank you very much for that, Navy, because now I can't do yoga without my body hurting.
I loved it because the history behind that day goes back hundreds of years, man.
Hundreds. I mean, it's tradition. I loved it,
Uh,
and I'm
I
glad
love
to
the
be a
tradition.
shellback. But
Yeah.
it was just.
It was fun after he got done being beat with a fucking fire hose.
Hey, George.
Yeah.
Did they make you make a shellback out of a T-shirt? So you put like a little pollywog tail. Did they make you do
what
that?
I did was remove a metal plate from the bulletproof vests we wore in the days, and I secured one with airplane tape to my ass.
Nice.
Over my underwear. Because I was kind of a comedian and a wild man in those days. I changed quite a bit then. And
you see this guy with the pasty legs?
Yes.
The bald guy.
That's me. Fucking walking like a fucking crab.
Yeah, they were laying for me, the older guys in the detachment. And I took some pain, even with the stolen plate. And I remember wrapping my knees and hands with tape, but we took some pain.
I sympathize, but you know what? That's when the Navy shellback ceremony was the Navy shellback ceremony. Now,
of course, squids were not allowed to touch Marines, but I remember very distinctly having them brought down, particularly when I was putting people through, and they would bring down some real hard cases from various departments to come down and spend some time with the Marines.
Nice.
Get those yeomans out there.
Yeah.
Easy on the yeomans.
One night, right about the end of my tour, there was me. I don't know. There's a statute on this, but me and two other Marines, and they know who they are. And we were training up some newbies that had just come on the ship, and the weapons were on and everything, but we were in port. Well, there was an MAA shack right above the hatch to our berthing. Well, anyway, there was also a camera. And so this fucking squid come in drunk, and he was making the rounds because you know how you go around the 4 and a half mess decks? It was a big loop. We'd come around, he'd flip us off. Well, we caught him going around about the third fucking time in the middle of the night. And me and this other Marine's going to remain nameless. He knows who he is.
And you beat his ass? I hope you beat his ass.
We brought him to the MAAs and said, this fuckface has been tormenting us for the last 2 fucking hours, and you can either bring him to Captain's Mast or we can straighten it out ourselves. And this fucking old, crusty fucking first class is like, fuck him. Take care of it. So we took him down the fucking detachment, and we put him in the head. And me and these 2 other guys went in there, and there was a guy, and he was a former LAPD officer. And he took no shit, and he did not give one fuck. And he said, I'm going to flip this fucking coin. He says, heads, I'm going to kick your ass. And he's like, tails, I'm going to kick your ass. And then he hauled off and just fucking drove this guy. And then the rest of us tuned him up, and we sent him on his merry way. I remember that. And the best part of that was we had 2 guys that had been on the guard maybe 2 fucking weeks, and they're in the guard shack, and they are just standing there slack-jawed with their mouths hanging open and their eyes this big a fucking round, because you could hear everything through. You could hear a mouse fart through the bulkheads there, the interior walls. So it was hysterical.
God, I miss that accent so much, man. Shit, I love it. I love it, George.
I bet you taught him a lesson that day.
I don't know. It was stupid now, but I don't know. Maybe he steers clear of security cameras. Maybe he's a fucking burglar that can evade them now, all because of his phobia of cameras. I don't know. They have helped the lad out.
That reminds me of I almost got my ass beat, but I never got caught. I used to throw chem lights when fucking the Marines wanted to fucking just go and rest because they worked us hard on our ship. So I'd go to the fucking gear locker. Fucking, I had the key. I'd get all this. I'd get a chem light, fucking break it, and I'd throw it overboard. And fucking that is the general quarters man overboard drill.
Oh yes.
And so whenever we wanted to rest, people would they'd be like, "Hey, Far, can you help us out?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I never got caught. I would have gotten kicked out of the Marine Corps if I had gotten caught.
Yeah.
They would have fucking killed me for that.
We were in the Indian Ocean, I believe, and because we did like 106 days, I think, on station there.
Damn.
Yeah.
So we're anchored some turd pile, and we're just sitting out there in the ocean, no land in sight. Well, I remember it was night, and they were doing something, And we had been, because they wouldn't let anybody in our berthing, if they weren't Marines. So we had chiseled up some old tile out of an office or someplace. So I got stuck when putting it in garbage bags, me and a couple other guys, bringing it all the way off to the fantail and heaving it off the fantail. About my second trip, I'm like, well, fuck this. So I just went midships and heaved that fucking thing over. Well, you got a picture, a whole bag of asbestos tile hitting the water from 40 or 50 feet up there, midships. Yeah. Well, it made a big splash, and right off the bat, I heard that fucking 1MC going, and I hauled fucking ass because I knew it was coming. Sure enough, general quarters and fucking man overboard, because one of them guys on mid-watch was like, he'd hurt. I would have done the same thing, quite frankly.
Yeah.
That was in 1987, so I think the statute of limitations is out on that.
Yeah, you're good now.
Hey, George, I got a question, because this is coming from a boot corporal, 2004 to 2008. So like we heard stories about you salty guys. Now back in the day, if you fucking had to see the sergeant, you were in trouble. If you fucking saw the staff sergeant, you were fucking dead. Like, you never saw, like, E6s and above, you hardly saw them. Is that true?
Us?
Yeah, like if you were in trouble, like.
Yeah, we didn't get our discipline from sergeants and staff sergeants, particularly on that boat. First off, I don't know if you've ever heard. The top enlisted man in the detachment was a first sergeant, okay. And so First Sergeant Reyes was a ass in the grass Marine from Vietnam. He did not fuck around. The only time I ever got written up there was a corporal named Wentz, who actually ended up being a hard charger. He retired as I believe he got really tuned up in either Afghanistan or Iraq. He retired as either an E8 or an E9. I can't remember. But he wrote a charge sheet because I was lippy with him with some bullshit. And First Sergeant Reyes brought us in there. He heard it. He yelled at me for about 30 seconds, and he's told me to turn around. And he fucking kicked me in the ass so hard my head bounced off his bump. It left a mark. It didn't split my head open. And then he was Filipino, so he says, "Get the fuck out of here." And that was it. And then the only other time I ever saw him grab a hold of somebody is he was particularly rough. He liked to teach us, we had a lot of, use of nightsticks and batons and stuff. And he'd do that one where he'd shove it right between your legs and jerk you up by your balls, and it was no mercy. And if you were on his shit list when we were having that training, you got jerked up by your balls. Or Rich, do you remember when we'd have the bugle stick fights in the hangar deck, and all the squids would gang around to watch the Marines pound on each other?
Yes.
And then Andrew, you remember in boot camp, I don't know how they did it then, but you fought till they blew the whistle.
Yep, exactly.
So and God help you if you stopped, even if and it's not instinctual to pound on another Marine.
Oh, dude, I kicked the shit out of this one guy.
But First Sergeant Reyes would never blow the whistle, even if you got the guy down and had him knocked on his ass. So I got sick of it. There was a guy I was no particular friends with, and I was sick of fucking swinging that bugle stick. So I picked it up like a fucking axe right over my head and whopped that fucking guy right on the back. And he just comes over. He muckled right on. He let me have it, But
damn,
my conduct in uniform, your conduct had to be it was either all or nothing. And if you fucked up in uniform, if you fucked up on post, you were out. You were gone. You're out to the fleet. But the valve for that for us on that ship, because we were children. When my son was 19, he was drinking beer over to UNH. I mean, so what we got a lot of rope out in town, and it was and you remember out Webster Street, Rich, and then going across, you could actually go into Oakland if you went with the right guys in those days. You go to San Francisco, they loved you. There was no Marines out there. There was very little short hair out there. We used to plunder, of course, the Navy women on base. There was the Gompers right next to us.
The Gompers. These Gompers. Yes.
That was fertile ground. Of course, the NASE club, I got their shit that happened there. And Rick, do you ever remember the Anchor Lounge?
Yes, I do.
That beer joint. We used to go in there and pick fights incessantly. And you could get yourself shit-faced for $5 in there too.
Yep.
But that E Club, I mean, the shit that went on in there, it's funny. My sides hurt. when we had that reunion we were talking
Yeah.
about. But it was just such a different but wild time, and there was a lot more leeway when you were out of uniform. They didn't give a shit in those days. And with us, as long as you didn't get yourself arrested or disgrace the Corps out in town. I mean, our liberty briefs would be: go wax your wand, don't kill anybody, don't create an international incident. Inevitably, there'd be a dickhead like we're in Australia who created an international incident, but Lieutenant Seaton at the time got him out of that. I don't know what the hell he had to do, but he got him out of it. We had this guy come on board. He was a newbie, got himself shit-faced, and took it upon himself to find the first Australian man he found with a fucking peg leg and break it. And so the Australian police quickly threw him in jail. But
you guys had an international incident too. So do we in Malta.
In Australia,
in Dubai.
We got out of that.
3 guys, they called a princess the C word, gave her the finger, and they were in a Dubaian prison for 8 months.
Yeah, I bet bad shit was happening to them in there.
It was not good. They obviously they got a big chicken dinner when they got home.
Of course.
But
I think they got something else while they were in that prison too.
Dude,
every fuck around over there in Dubai.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't want to be in a Dubai prison. We had our gunny. Our gunny had to stay behind to make sure those kids didn't get killed over in Dubai while they were there.
That was like getting locked up in Tijuana in our day.
And Bush
had to get locked up in Tijuana.
And Bush had to come over and get him out during his peace talks when he was in Tel Aviv. We were in, it was crazy. And us Marines, we love being on Libo and going to all these places. Like you guys saw the world. I went to, I don't know how many countries you went to. I went to 14 in 7 months. How many countries you go to? You guys go?
Oh man, I have to. Korea. It was Busan, Korea. And incidentally, now that I look back on it and all these countries hate us, I know why. Because I know the shit we pulled over there in 1986. I mean, good God. I don't know about the sailors, but we fucking destroyed Korea.
Yeah.
The place we tore it up the most was Kenya, because they spent 3 weeks before we landed there showing us pictures of the most diseased genitals you have ever seen in your life. And it was also right at the beginning of when AIDS was a huge unknown, and there was no public health of any kind, and Kenya was one of the more developed countries at that time. So I don't know a single Marine that got himself laid in Kenya for sure. No. So all we'd been out to sea. They were going to put us into Perth after being in the Indian Ocean for 106 days, and I think somebody decided that was not a good idea. So they turned us loose in Mombasa, and we absolutely fucking destroyed the place. I mean, it's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
And just because that's all there was to do, and there was no women. At that time, I think there were like British women that were vacationing, but they wouldn't get within 100 miles of us. And so we went to Singapore,
the Philippines,
PI. Oh yes. Oof.
Yeah. Let's hear your favorite PI story.
Ooh. All right. Well, my wife's in the building.
Oh yeah.
My favorite PI story. Well, I'll term it like this. It is what it is. There's a statute of limitations. My favorite PI story was when we were at the Marine Corps Museum down in Quantico. One of my good friends from those days, Paul Thomas, comes out and he says, have either of you been to that museum? There's that big entryway.
So we got kicked out of Ton Tavern.
Yeah, there's a big, long entryway that goes into it before you actually set foot in it. And he says, the echoes in here remind me of the time Davenport was chasing that woman down the street with his dick out. And of course, my wife was very happy, and all the wives were just like, "Oh my Jesus Christ!" I thought it was the funniest thing they'd said. And there was just if you picture absolute mayhem. I mean, we were drunk the whole time on that mojo. We had a guy in the detachment who was a corporal who we absolutely detested. I'll let him remain nameless because he's probably locked up in some California institution at this point. But he had been over there, so he got us hooked up with this Lipovidin stuff. So you were up for 3 straight days. You didn't pop on a drug test with it. It was, basically natural shit. I got to tell you, it was just absolute mayhem, and pretty much anything this side of murder and rape you can think went over there. I mean, we raised hell. We just raised absolute hell. We ran them up.
That's what Marines do.
And then, of course, it was a different time. What was that? The first Top Gun was out, so that was a big deal. There were a lot. It was
on your ship.
Was on our. Oh yes. Which reminds me. Again, I got way more inventive about the ladies. And when we were in Hawaii, Top Gun had just come out.
Correct.
So I realized that trading a pair of camo pants to a squid for some coveralls and a few dollars at the ship store and a big red wrapper could automatically promote me to 03 in the Marine Corps.
Nice.
That's a big red wrapper up there in the corner. And so that got you hooked up with the ladies. And that all worked good until I got the first letter on the ship addressed to Captain Davenport. And our captain, our CO of the detachment, Captain Owens, was less than humorous about that.
I bet
he handed me an envelope that said Captain George Davenport on it. And it had a big red marker next to Captain, and it said private. And he handed that to me, and he said, unfuck this shit, numbnuts, and unfuck it now.
That's awesome.
So Lance Corporal became line captain plane landing. It was a promotion. And that was a pretty good scam, and it was just, again, it was a different time, a much different time.
Yeah, it was.
Girls were different. The guys were different. Being in San Francisco in those days, you didn't need a map to step over shit. Right. You could go to anywhere, anywhere. We just, when I tell you, it was just a great, a wild time.
Nothing off limits, huh?
Well, there was nothing off limits. We had an admin room where we would all chip in and sleep at the Waikiki Surf West Hotel. I'll never forget it. And by the time we had all showed up there, we was also friggin' drunk. We were pitching beer bottles off about the 15th floor window. And that we got warned, and the cops there decided it was time for us to leave. So, yeah, I remember a story from Hawaii that you'll enjoy. So me, this guy Howard Memory, and another guy, Lance Pope, we're out in town. We're in this bar, and we're talking to these three girls, and we're reeling and rocking. We're having a good time, and we're thinking we're going to close up the deal here. Life's looking good. And all of a sudden, all you can smell is fucking weed in this bar. I mean, it just covered in the weed. We look up, and there's three long hairs across the room, and next thing you know, these girls ditched us for those three fucking guys, and they're all over there having a party. And we were over there deciding how we were going to work the tune-up. And I looked out the door of this bar, and it was during the daytime, or at least when it was light, and I see two Honolulu cops standing right there. I go out, and I go, "Excuse me, officer." I said, "There are some filthy long ears in there smoking the devil weed marijuana." And in they went, hooked them all up. The women, too, took them right out, and we were toasting them as they went out the door.
Wow.
Marijuana. It was just hysterical.
That is the most Blue Falcon story I have ever heard in my entire life. That is like ting, ting, ting. That is dropping dimes. Holy shit. That's awesome.
But they were squids, so it didn't fucking matter. They
Dude,
were
that is one for the books. See, I'm so glad you came up with this TSP The Scuttlebutt, because it's shit awesome like this that we need to hear, that fucking, it makes me happy every fucking day. And George, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for putting those long hairs into prison where they belong.
And I don't give a fuck. Hey, look at my hair. I wouldn't mind being a long hair right about now, but
yeah, me too. I can't grow hair no more.
In those days, it was all about that, but I just don't know how to explain it. And I don't know, am I overstating it, Rich? It was just such a different time then.
Yeah.
And again, you had the sailors. It was a big rivalry with the sailors there, but it was also because we had a pretty unpleasant job to do if we ever had to do it. And again, you had, at that time when the Air Wing was embarked, I believe it was right around 6,000 people with the embarked Air Wing on there. I grew up in a town of 3,000. So it was just, in order for us to do the job we had to do it a certain way.
Yeah.
Another good Hawaii story. We we get shit faced one night.
Nice.
Imagine that.
Always shit face. Awesome.
And so we come back to the boat for some reason. I think it's because we had to be up for duty in the morning or something. So we get shit faced. And me and some guys who will remain nameless, we're up on the flight deck for some unbeknownst reason. And we look down and we see that there's an officer brow and there's an enlisted brow. And of course, it's Hawaiian June, so they're wearing whites. So all these Navy officers are bringing fucking girls on, and of course, they're all pilots. And, I mean, they wrote their own check in those days.
Yep.
So we go down 4 or 5 decks and there's a little, there's always the gun posts and there was whatever was on there. So we're looking out over the side, and now we're only about 20 feet over that brow. We go find buckets full of this nastiest fucking water we can find, and we start bailing that right over the side onto the officer's brow. It's covering the fucking officers. It's covering their dates. Yeah. Shit hit the fan.
Did you get caught?
Nope.
Yeah, buddy.
Do you remember when the women ombudsman, when we were at Christmas time, sent them Christmas trees on the mess decks? Well, we decided that the squids could only have certain nice things. And it was Christmas in the Mardet, too. So we stole one of them Christmas trees. Do you remember the captain going on and on and on and on about the missing Christmas tree? And so we never gave that up. And then what we did is they sent cards. And what we do is in the middle of the night, we go up, we'd steal all the good-looking women, Polaroids, and the daughters and the wives. And so we decorated our tree with that. And I'll never forget, Lieutenant Seaton is like, I remember he's saying, "Where did that come from?" And Sikatovich said, "My wife sent it to me, sir." And he's like, "Well, she's a very nice person." And that was the end of it.
Oh my God.
That is awesome. You guys are hilarious.
Yeah.
Hey, Fleek, do you wanna ask a question, or should I have it pulled up if you want me to?
Uh-oh.
George, we're gonna ask you 2 questions.
All right.
Pick. How about I ask him the first and you do the second, Fleek?
What do you mean the second?
Like you get the number and then you ask the question.
Oh, it don't matter how we do.
Yeah, George, pick a number between 1 and 10, and don't pick 7.
8.
Oh, 8.
Number 8. Fleek, it's on you.
All right. How has your military service impacted your approach to challenges in your civilian life?
I use this phrase often, all joking aside. My experiences in the military, again, they order my life today. I learned, again, at 19, I was a virgin when I went to boot camp, to tell you how naive I was.
Same.
I learned well, and I learned a lot. I became a man in many ways, but I learned that you love who you love. I learned that again, in our day, it was 5 years in Leavenworth if you got caught in a homosexual act. I learned when I was 19 years old. I saw a gentleman that was in the detachment with me, and I learned something about him, and I kept his secret. And I've kept it my entire life. Only my Mardet brothers know it. But the same look that man had in his eye when he parted with that other guy is the same look that you would give your wife or your girlfriend. It made me realize a lot of shit. So what I learned out there, being stationed in San Francisco, being exposed to being in California in those days, and California 40 years ago is not California today. I learned that when it got right down to it, the color of your skin didn't matter a whit. It was the only color that mattered was green. I have habits that order my life today, and as far as timeliness, I have not lived an exemplary life since I got out of the service by any means. I have all the human flaws that anybody has. But the thing I think that I learned the most about it, and I felt it then, but it was completely reinforced, is after seeing these guys and not seeing my fellow Mardet guys. And I did not have this experience with guys in the fleet. I only keep in touch with 2 guys from the fleet, the FMF. But the guys in that detachment, we picked up like we were right in 1988 again. And again, you knew these guys right down to the last little detail if he was having problems. So the thing I've gotten the most is I don't have any close friends. I have 2. I have a lot of people I know, but not a ton of friends. It taught me about what really matters, and when it gets right down to it, and what matters, and what really counts. And I still carry that today. Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's amazing, man.
Yes.
George, I have sent you an email with the Ton Tavern stuff and
Okay.
a formal invitation to come and join us.
No kidding. Thank you very much.
I am staying at my timeshare in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is 52 miles away from Philly, with some other O3s, mostly 11s. I think I'll be the only 31 there. But my platoon, second squad, 4 guys that I hold dear to my heart. And you can bring whoever you want. We can fit up to 8 people in that room. And it's a villa, and you guys are totally invited. And we're going to convoy down to Philadelphia. We're going to go see the Navy and the Marine Corps, like celebrate our 250th birthday. And you're going to see the raising of Ton Tavern. So you're more welcome to come. I invite you wholeheartedly myself tonight.
Absolutely.
And I have to ask a question. If I am in New Hampshire in May, which I will be for my wife's graduation from Riviera University, would it be okay if I gave you a call so we could hang out?
Yeah, I'll get you my contact information through the email, and then you can touch base when it gets a little closer. Absolutely.
No, good to go. Well, dude, I'll take me and my wife. We'll take you out to dinner, man. We'll go to we'll take you to some fancy joint at Exeter, New Hampshire.
Well, you know
How
what?
far is that?
Well, how about Portsmouth, over to the library? It's my wife and I's favorite haunt.
Let's go to Portsmouth. Portsmouth is great. Yes,
they make an alligator of a Grey Goose martini in there.
Okay. Well, drinks are on us. Food's on us.
You better watch out saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
My son, when we came back from the reunion, we're coming home.
I will be your designated driver because I don't drink anymore. So you drink as much as you want, Marine.
Well, self-control probably get the better of me these days.
Yeah.
But George, thank you. Fleek, do you have any saved rounds for tonight?
No, man. I just want to reiterate, California was definitely different 40 years ago. And if you remember correctly, Ronald Reagan was the governor turned president, who is one of my most proudest things I can say in my life is that I served under Ronald Reagan. It was a great time. It was a great time serving with people like George, even though they didn't like sailors back then. It's all good. I'm sure there was mutual hatred.
I think that's absolute.
But you know what they say?
I like Corman.
Fight, so it's all good. George,
I like the Corman.
I appreciate you coming on, buddy, and telling your story.
No, thanks for having me. And
thanks, George.
Yeah, and make sure you check out Minutes Wisely, man. Maybe there's an event that you want to go to, and you let us know, and maybe we can hook something up.
No, I'll take a look. No, thank you for having me, guys. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So.
Oh, you're good.
Semper Fi, brother.
I told you I was a Luddite technologically. I meant it.
Yes. All right. I'm going to hit the end recording button. Just stick around for a second so we can wrap things up and see you guys next Sunday.